Hello, everyone. Welcome to the program. This is Politics Today, live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Kimbaloe here in Abuja. Tonight, we'll be bringing you all of the reactions, the angles, and the perspectives, different ones on the industrial action of the organized labor, which took effect yesterday. And of course, the whole nation has been feeling a pinch of it. The negotiation, which was entering into a stalemate over the last few weeks, and now it does look like there is a headway. Labour has agreed to call off the strike temporarily for 1 week, pending the actual realization of the finalization of the minimum wage, which says over 60,000, and it will be less. Before we get into all of that, let me give you an update of what is happening on the economic front. Today, a Minister of Finance and the coordinating Minister of the Economy, Mr. Wale Edun, today presented to President Bola Tinubu the economic stabilization plan developed by the Emergency Task Force, which was submitted to the President. And the plan is a cross-government response to stabilize the Nigerian economy and reposition it towards a higher growth trajectory. The EET is comprised of participants from federal government, state government, and the private sector. The minister had hinted that he will be presenting these to the president earlier on Channels Television exclusive with the minister on Sunday. Before we get into our major conversation tonight, let's serve you with some of your political roundup stories.
President Bola Tinubu has officially named the arterial road N20 stretching from the Northern Parkway to Outer Northern Expressway in Abuja as Professor Wole Soyinka Highway. This decision was made on a recommendation by the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Mr. Nyesom Wike, during the commissioning of the road in Abuja. The president emphasized the contributions of Professor Soyinka's literature and his role in elevating Nigeria's global cultural standing. The president also praised the Minister of the FCT for his developmental strides since assumption of office. And former President Goodluck Jonathan has appealed to the judiciary to do the right thing by not entertaining fictitious elections litigations filed by politicians. The former president was speaking in Asaba, Delta State, where he inaugurated the Delta State High Court complex and also flagged off the presentation of vehicles to judges in the state. He commended Governor Sheriff Oberevori for his focus on the infrastructural development of the state and his commitment to continue with projects inherited from the previous administration. The Independent National Electoral Commission has extended the continuous voter registration exercise in Edo and Ondo State to the 6th and 9th of June 2024 to enable more eligible persons to register. In a statement signed by the National Commissioner and Chairman, Information and Voter Education Committee, Mr. Sam Olumekun, the Commission states that the extension is due to the appeal by stakeholders to enable more voters participate in the registration process. According to the statement, more centers have been increased in the two states. To Yobe State, where security agencies have expressed readiness to restrain any breakdown of law and order ahead of the Yobe State local government elections slated for this Saturday, the 8th of June 2024. The State Commissioner of Police, Mr. Ahmed Garba, while addressing journalists after a security meeting, which was chaired by the Secretary to the State Government, knows that the security agencies have mapped out strategies for a hitch-free election across the state. Rivers State Governor Siminalayi Fubara says the worst political crisis that recently rocked the oil-rich state is over. Mr. Fubara says the state government is now working tirelessly to deliver quality services and signature infrastructural projects in line with his administration's People's First mantra. Governor Fubara made the declaration at the Thanksgiving reception organized by the Amayanabo of Okochiri Kingdom, King Ateke Tom, in Okochiri Town, Okrika local government area of Rivers State.
Like I said, the worst is over. What we are doing today is looking forward and advancing our states.
Meanwhile, the Rivers State chapter of the All Progressives Congress has described the first-year administration of Governor Siminalayi Fubara as a total disaster. At a news conference in Port Harcourt, the state capital, the state APC caretaker chairman, Mr. Tony Okocha, says the people of the state are yet to see any projects completed by the governor since his assumption of office.
I challenged the governor to show me just one project that he initiated, commenced, and completed in 365 days.
Thank you so much, everyone. That's your political roundup stories. And now you're up to speed with some of the stories we're following for you. Let's get to it. It's a sigh of relief for a lot of Nigerians, especially if you ask those who have not been having electricity in their homes, perhaps the whole nation, because we understand that the national grid was shut down. And also those who want to travel from one point to the other in the country or, in fact, outside of the country, they have been stranded, flights disrupted, hospitals and critical services have been disrupted in the wake of the labor industrial action. They said they forewarned that they will go on strike, but they couldn't get a hold of the final outcomes of the negotiation with federal government. And so labor went into that industrial action. But there's been meetings upon meetings. Yesterday, it does look like that meeting culminated into an agreement of some sort, which brought to the point that labor went back to their colleagues and they had a neck meeting. And after the neck meeting, of course, we got an information that there will be a momentary or temporary, if you may, a week suspension of the industrial action by labor. Some of the pictures of yesterday's meeting, which included several ministers and the National Security Advisor, which went late into the evening yesterday until when they emerged from that meeting, we understand the agreement was that no worker under the guise of this industrial action would be victimized, and whatever be the agreement would be over 60,000 and not lower. And that was some of the elements of the discussion yesterday. But today, let's give you an understanding of what has been happening. Labor, on the different angles, went back to their colleagues. They had a meeting, and they've emerged out of that meeting deciding on the way forward. Let me allow you to listen to some of the labor leaders on what they agreed upon after their meeting today.
The government is committed to moving beyond 60,000. Prior to now, even there was a challenge on why, by some subnationals, on why should you even agree on 60. And they were quarreling among themselves why it should be 60. Some of them didn't even agree. Well, the outcome of yesterday's deliberation shows that they are committed to moving beyond that. So it's like they have given a framework for us to negotiate, to reach certain thresholds.
We followed the standard of a typical agenda for a meeting, and we exhausted what we needed to do for today. So having exhausted what was in the agenda, we adjourn for tomorrow.
That's the leaders of Labour, the TUC president there, and earlier the NLC president, Joe Ajaero. Well, again, after all of what has been said and done, it does look like the negotiating team set up by the federal government had to meet with President Bola Tinubu. And after the meeting, the government spoke about its own side of the old negotiation. Listen to the Minister of Information after that meeting.
The president has given a marching order that all those who have negotiated on behalf of government and all those also who are representative of other sectors, the organized private sector, the subnationals, come together so that we can have a new wage award that is acceptable, that is sustainable, and that is also realistic for Nigeria. A wage award is not just that of the federal government. Like I mentioned earlier, the subnationals are involved, the organized private sector is involved, the labor is involved. It was labor that staged a step out during those proceedings. Now that we have come back to the negotiating table, all of us will work together again assiduously within the next 1 week to ensure that we have a new wage for Nigeria that is acceptable, that is sustainable, that is also realistic for all Nigerians.
the Minister of Information briefing after the meeting, which was led by the SGF, the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Senator Akume, George Akume, who led the negotiating team, which of course included the Ministers of Finance, the Minister of Budget, the Minister of Labor, and the NNPCL Group MD, the Chief of Staff to the President, which they briefed the President. Of course, we understand now that the federal government has redirected the Minister of Finance to forward or get ready a template for the minimum wage to be presented or getting ready for the President's approval, of course, going forward. In all of this, there are reactions and counter-reactions in whatever has happened. And what the stance of Labour is very crucial, because it does look like Labour holds the ace here, and they have laid their cards on the table. Later on the program, I will be showing you where they're coming from. Where they are right now wasn't actually, or is not where they were. From 30,000, we saw the federal government come higher and higher, but all of those propositions from the federal government was unacceptable to Labour. The Labour had walked out of federal government because, according to Labour, the federal government wasn't serious. We did not get negotiation. We will also show you. There you have it. So this is where we are, where we were. 30,000 naira from 2019. That was the figure. But when the negotiation started, federal government began the negotiation with 48,000. When I say federal government, I'm talking about the organized private sector, the state government, the local government, and several others, which include on the side of the government, of course, the federal government leading the Minister of Labor being the conciliator in that sense. But on the part of Labor, it is the organized labor. So see where they're coming from. From 30,000 to 48,000, then to 54,000, and the federal government proposed 57,000 as the last one, which afterwards, it was when Labour said, we will go on strike because the deadline, or the 30,000 which started in 2019 expired, I think 17th of April this year. But this is what Labour has proposed so far. Let me show you. From 615,000, that's where Labour started in their negotiation. And they went to 615, isn't it? 15 you started, and you went to 600, and you came down
to 400, 500, then to 497,
absolutely,
and to 494.
All right, great. Mr. Festus Sifo is the president of the Trade Union Congress. He's since joined us on the program to give us an update on the side of Labour. We had a Minister of Labor yesterday. Now let's hear from Labour. Thank you so much indeed, President TUC, for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much, Sheung. Good evening to you. Good evening, viewers.
So give us an understanding, if you can summarize the position of Labour as of today.
Yes. The position of Labour as of today, it is still similar to what where we were as at Friday last week. If you could remember, on Friday last week was the day that we went into the tripartite meeting. That when we got to the meeting, the federal government, the government, and the organized labor, they told the organized private sector, they told us that they cannot do anything more than 60,000. So 60,000 was the max they said they could do. So all efforts to reach out to them, we tried to explain to them that, okay, let them go and get more mandate. They said no, that there is nothing they can do beyond 60,000 naira. So we tried to explain to them at the level of inflation since 2019 till now, that, okay, if you do that adjustment, where are we supposed to be? We also tried to explain to them the level of devaluation. So we brought in principles into the negotiations. Because in negotiations, what you normally do is that if you have negotiated 2 years ago, you are negotiating today, all you need to do is to look at the economic parameters. When you look at those economic parameters, you do adjustment. So we tried to make them understand, but they said they cannot add a dime to the 60,000 naira. That is the maximum they could afford.
Yeah, so
as of Friday.
That was the brick wall.
Yes. So when that happened, we had no choice. I remember Friday was also the date that our ultimatum was expiring. So we told them that we will wait. In that meeting of Friday, we will wait till midnight for them to go and get mandate from their respective principals. that we are ready to wait here from 4 p.m. till midnight because we didn't really want to go on the strike. We never wanted to. So when we did all that, there was nothing that happened. There was no single indication that they want to go above 60,000 naira. So that was what led to the leadership of NLC and TUC coming together and taking that position and declaring for the strike. So when that happened, there was no formal meeting on Saturday, but we were invited by the Senate President on Sunday. So we went into that meeting. So we spent a lot of hours deliberating. So all we got from the Senate President was there, then the executive, the SGF, the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Labor, they were all there. They said we should give them, the Senate President was pushing that we should give them 2 months. Now within 2 months, we were able to conclude on minimum wage. We said, no, this is the urgency of the moment. We cannot give you 2 months. 2 months is too far. After the meeting, there was nothing that was also put on the table other than give us 2 months for us to solve this problem.
So that was the position of the National
on Sunday. That was on Sunday.
Just to buy time.
Yes, both the Speaker and the Senate President, they were in the meeting, and the principal officers. And we thank them for trying to intervene. But that the 2 months was quite high or much. So after then, we now met with the SGF and the federal government team yesterday. So during that meeting, 2 things were achieved principally. One of the item that was achieved was that, remember the meeting of Friday, they said they will not add anything more to the 60,000. But in the meeting of yesterday, they were able to commit. Mr. President was able to commit to say that, okay, they are committed to do what is more than 60,000.
60,000 plus?
Yes.
Whether it's 61,000 or 60,500?
No. We also told them that it's not that we get to the table, you start adding 1 naira, 3,000 as you were doing. So we have some little guarantees here and there that know that they are going to do something that is quite good. We said, okay, we are going to take that, number 1. Then number 2 as well, they also agreed that it's going to be within 1 week. That within 1 week, they are going to dispense with this. That was a big improvement from what the National Leadership and National Assembly leadership proposed on Sunday, that we should give them 8 weeks. So from 8 weeks to 1 week. If they had told us on Sunday that, okay, give us 1 week, we will resolve this. If what we achieved yesterday was achieved on Sunday, there was no need for us to have entered into any industrial action because we are not really happy. That is the last resort that we go into. So when that now happened, we now needed to take all that to our neck today. So addressing the neck, the neck said, okay, it's fine. They have asked for 1 week. We will also relax our industrial action for 1 week. And wait for them and see what could be achieved. So after that, we went to a tripartite meeting today. We set up a timeline for us to achieve the closure to these entire issues bordering on the national minimum wage. So that is actually where we are as of today. So
as far as you're concerned, the intervention, you think that the president's office actually now came on board? Is that what it looks like? Yes. Through the office of the SGF? Yes, correct. So when the president, when the thought of Mr. President was communicated that this is the position of a president that is committed to this, and for just 1 week, that was really the catch in it, not 8 weeks. So because it was 1 week and Mr. President committed, we felt that, okay, let us give that honor. That 1 week is just around the corner. So we can endure for 1 week, but we couldn't have endured for 8 weeks. So because of that, we now intend, we now communicated, had our meeting, they did agreed and communicated to Nigerians that the strike has been relaxed for the next 1 week. So we trust that Mr. President's intervention will yield something quite good for Nigerians, so that at the end of the day, Nigerians will have a minimum wage that is quite good and will be able to take them home. The position of yourself and your colleague, the president of NLC on this program, and you've told me on this program that federal government looked unserious. In fact, at some point, Mr. Ajaro told me on this program that they didn't have right figure and right data to come and negotiate. And you also reiterate that position that the federal government did not come on board as a serious element in discussing those. And I asked the minister yesterday, and he said, in fact, they showed seriousness, that you are the ones, the party, that worked out 3 times on them in that negotiation. But from yesterday, is there any change, or what exactly did you mean by unserious? Yes, when you say unserious, Shehu, you are going into a meeting
in that meeting, you have a 37-man committee. You have the chairman, as 12 from organized labor, 6 TUC, 6 NLC, 12 from the federal from government, 6 federal government, 6 state government. Then you also have the organized private sector, 12, making up the composition of the 37. So you go into such meeting. When you go to the meeting, organized private sector, they will be complete. On our part as well, the labor, we are always complete. But when you go there, you see that the government side, they are not always complete. In fact, apart from the opening ceremony, you hardly see any of the governors sitting in any of these conversations. You don't even see them. At best, maybe you have one joining via Zoom. So it has been like that. To be fair to the Minister of Labor, she has been virtually all the meetings. Then also the Minister of Finance and the Minister of the Economy, as well as the Minister of National Planning. They've always been available. But you have some composition. So naturally, out of 12, you always have most of them being represented. They are not always present.
Let's call it
so because they are
on the side of federal government.
Yes.
Sometimes they have their representation present, but the state governors and the local government they are usually not.
Yes,
so they are the unserious parties.
Yes.
So let's call it safe.
Yes. So that is part of the unseriousness. Another part we also looked at was that when we came to the table, Shehu, we brought the minimum wage that we think will work, and we did a breakdown. So all we expected is that, because again, we live in a data-driven society. We live in an information-based society. When you are coming, all we expected was that show us some data. You understand? As you proposed initially 48,000 naira. So we have asked, okay, tell us, how do you want someone to live on this?
How did you arrive at those figures?
Give us some of the input that went into this. Till today, none of those inputs.
So usually, Mr. Osifo, each time Labour had gone in there, if you bring back those figures on the screen so that our viewers can see, they proposed 48,000 first, 54,000 followed, 57,000 until yesterday, where they said, anything above 60,000. But you have, when you presented 615,000 naira, you gave them the indices.
Correct.
And how you arrived at 615,000.
Correct.
Did you do the same thing when you presented 497,000? And there are those who said you were being funny by just removing 2,000 naira when you presented the last figure at 494,000.
Yeah.
Did you make presentation on how you arrived at those figures?
Yes, from our side, because they were not coming forth with any presentation. But from our side, whenever we come down like that, we do some adjustment to what we have in there. We do some adjustments. We try to put the breakdown. Okay, we can reduce this by this amount, like that. But the reason we also reduced by 3,000 when we were on 497, when they now moved from 57,000 to 60,000, adding 3,000 naira, we now said that this is not, what we call in local parlance, kalu. That if you are moving like that, we will also move downward in the same strength by 3,000 naira. So that was why we did that. But again, Shehu, in all seriousness, they know very well that we are not fixated on 494. They know very well. And we also know on our path that 494,000 naira is not, cannot be afforded by everybody from the different spectra today. We understand that. But again, like as I've said in your program and in several other fora, that if you go into negotiations, what you do, even when you know that this is your minimum benchmark, you always come with your best argument. You always come with your best strength. So they will also come with their argument. Then when we come with that argument, then at the end, what now determine where we will end is principle, Shehu. And what is the principle that will determine where it will end? One, what is the inflation? If you adjust 30,000 naira for inflation in 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2024, where will that value be today? That is what we often refer to as the net present value. So where will that value be today? Then again, if you also look at the exchange rate, as when this value was agreed in 2019, what was the exchange rate as at then? What is the real value of this money as at then? So 30,000 naira as at that time was equivalent to about 95 about $95. Okay, today, what is the current of $95? You know, so those are negotiations based on principles. Negotiation is a science, also an art as well. So you must be able to bring those principles into it, then you now know where we ought to be. So that is the principle we want government to also apply to these negotiations, so that when you bring principle, both parties will not have much argument to make at the end of the day.
So before we go on our first break on the program, I'd like to know, there are those who believe that Labour, perhaps, or before I ask that question, there are those who be worried now because you guys shut down the nation and everybody is suffering for it. Have you restored everything that you shut down now?
Yes, the process is currently going on. And just to use opportunity to also address the fact that we don't enjoy shutting down. We don't enjoy it. That was why, Shehu, on May 1st, we gave an ultimatum. Normally, the law requires us to give ultimatum for 14 days or 15 days thereabout.
The AGF disagreed with you. Oh. And in the letter I sent, he said, what you said was faulty and your stand on going on strike was untenable.
No, the AGF was wrong in this regard. Because we have acknowledged, yes, we saw it. We have an acknowledgement letter, an acknowledgement of the letter that we sent out. We sent letter to all arms of government. So we have an acknowledgement of it. So after that May 1st declaration at the Eagle Square, the next day, we now sent out a formal communication to them because verbal declaration is not sufficient in law. So we now sent out a formal communication, giving them almost 1 month notice. So that 1 month notice, then after then, we started conversation on the minimum wage. There was a deadlock that you reported in your program. Channels covered it extensively. There was a deadlock, there was a walkout. Those were red flags. When you see such red flags, you need to quickly activate all mechanisms of this resolution to get it done. But nothing was done until a strike was not declared on Friday. So for us, strike is always the last. And it's not something we are always happy to do.
But again, Mr. Osifo, where Labour has been condemned in the processes leading up to this is there is a timeline agreed per Labour resolution, global Labour reposition standards on when there is a fallout, on when there is a deadlock. The time that is supposed to be given was not followed. In your own statutes, you have it. It's 14 days you're supposed to give after all negotiations are falling out, and you are not able to. All of those were not. You were giving an ultimatum in the middle of negotiation. You walked out on the negotiation, and these are the position of federal government that Labour got it wrong, and your premise upon going on strike was faulty. And legally speaking, Labour was in breach of the law.
Attorney General, for example, is not a judge. So Attorney General will interpret the law the way he understands the law. So for us, we also have our lawyers. So we consulted our lawyers before we went into this.
I've asked you what the law says.
Yes. So
how many days upon which, because the premise upon which you will go on strike is that strike is the last resort. Correct. And it's one of the instruments of you bringing home your demands. The question is, at what point do you go or do you activate those instruments? First and foremost, it's stated in your own rules that it must have deadlocked, and there are all the tendencies of resolving it is not possible. But there are those who will tell you that you will see in negotiation with government on the 1st of May when you release that ultimatum.
No, on the 1st of May, when we released that ultimatum, Shehu, we did not meet the entire April. The committee, the tripartite committee set a rule for itself, set a timeline for itself. In that timeline, we were supposed to conclude conversations in April. I could send it to you. But when we met in March, there was a push, most probably from one of the governors that attended that particular mass section, saying, no, let's have time to do some study. We saw that they were not ready. So when that happened at the end of March, we now watched. The entire April, we sat doing literally nothing. We never met at the committee level. That was what led to the ultimatum that we now issued on May 1st.
But there are those also, those of us who are watching on the sideline and who have seen this over and over again, we know that there was a problem ab initio. And let me point out the problem. if the expiration of the 30,000 minimum wage after a 5-year, upon which it's supposed to be reviewed, it's supposed to expire at April, mid of April.
Correct.
And meeting started in March, or the constitution
was
of
in
the
January.
was in January.
January 30th.
There are those.
That was also a problem, Sheung.
Yeah.
If you remember the agreement we signed on October 2nd, he said that the minimum wage committee will be inaugurated, I think, in November. If the minimum wage committee was inaugurated in November, we would have had 6 months to dispense with it before the law of 2019 establishing the minimum wage as at then expired. But this committee was not inaugurated till the last day of January. We're almost in February when they inaugurated the committee. So that was also problematic. So for us, what we have canvassed, then when they didn't inaugurate that committee in November, as agreed October, we started pushing. We wrote several letters. There was a lot of communication. All we were hearing was excuses upon excuses. So all we are saying is that, see, government, when it comes to the issue of labor, it should be taken much more seriously. Government should be, the attention should be there. What has this strike achieved today, Shehu? This strike has awakened everybody. I can tell you that between now and the next 1 week, the entire attention is going to be on the tripartite committee. That was actually what we're trying to achieve, and we're able to achieve that as well.
Let me speak on behalf of the rest of the over 200 million Nigerians. Have you and your colleagues restored the
processes are going on.
Because airports, hospitals...
No, the processes are all going on. Trust us. Immediately we reached that resolution. Even before the communique came out, we have the presidents of the respective affiliates of TUC and NLC, as well as the general secretaries of different affiliates, they are part of NEC. So they were there when we took that resolution, and immediately, even before we started anything...
I hope it's by phone call, because they are not expecting letters. Because some of us, we need lights tonight. We have not had lights for 2 days.
The letter came out just around noon, but even before that letter came out, through phone calls and all, they've started returning normalcy. And we assure Nigerians that the normalcy is being restored gradually, and probably before the end of today, everything should be 100% back in order.
I will allow you to listen to the federal lawmakers, the debaters. Some of them are not happy. And perhaps some of the decisions that should be taken in the coming days also will be reviewed. But we'll take a break, everyone. But when we come back, different dimensions here. Don't forget, everyone, I'd like to remind you that the figure is not the only component of that negotiation. There are other things, a long list, almost 28 or so items on the list of the negotiation with the federal government and labor over this minimum wage and the post-removal of fuel subsidy. Will labor take on that also? Be hearing after this break, everyone. Join us again. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us on the program. The president of the Trade Union Congress, Comrade Festus Osifo, has been speaking with us on the program on the outcome, the aftermath of some of the negotiation and meetings between the federal government and the organized labor. Now that we know that there is a 1 week suspension, we may call it, on the industrial action. Thank you so much, Mr. Osifo, for your time.
Thank you so much.
The federal lawmakers today were debating. We understand that earlier today they wanted to see it, but there was no live. But eventually some of them were able to sit. But the conversation came up on the floor of the Senate. But let me allow you to listen to 3 senators who spoke on this matter on the floor. One former governor, one former Senate president, and the chief whip. They spoke about this matter. Allow you to listen to their frustration about the implication of this industrial action on Nigeria and Nigerians. Take a listen to them.
I believe that enhancing the value of our currency, the naira, is such an important issue, because that will have whatever it is that we are able to provide as minimum wage to help Nigerians. We have the rest of Nigerians who will be going to the same market, who may not enjoy any minimum wage. So as we deal with the minimum wage, Mr. President, we should also be thinking of those who have no employment at all, because they constitute the bulk.
Every employer shall pay a minimum wage of not less than 30,000 per month to every worker under his establishment, except otherwise provided under this Act. And Section 4 says, the national minimum wage expires after 5 years, and it shall be reviewed in line with the provision of this Act. The law is there. So I'm suggesting, as much as negotiation is going on this fact, the national minimum wage is guided by law.
Let us see what we can do in persuading both Labour and the federal government in looking at between 75 and 90,000 naira. Because if you go by 90,000 naira, it means in the last 5 years, which this law was made, it means if you divide 90,000 times, divide 200%, let's say it's 200%, 90,000, divided by 5 is 40. And the food inflation, the purchasing parity, and other things we have in the market is also about 32% to 33%. So Labour should be very happy.
All right. Now, this was going to go into a debate at plenary today, but that was shut down. The Senate President came up and wouldn't allow it to go into the debate on the floor, and the Senate President gave his reasons. Take a listen to the Senate President, Godswill Akpabio.
Personal opinion will be that we thank them for agreeing to go back to the negotiation table. We urge the federal government to expedite action on negotiations in order to arrive at something that is acceptable, at least acceptable to both parties, or something that is reasonably acceptable to both parties. And then immediately thereafter, since the last minimum wage has expired, as an act of parliament, they should immediately send us an executive bill for us to commence work.
Part of what you did not hear from what the Senate President said was the fact that the pain of having to switch off the national grid, something that some people will say it's a national security matter. Well, is it? It's a big question. And when I saw the picture, the fact that the NSA was in that meeting, has he always come to end of the meeting?
Yes. If you remember, on October 2nd, when we reached that agreement, he played a critical role in getting that agreement of October 2nd signed that made us to share the strike that would have commenced the next day. If you remember as well, when our NLC president had issues in Imo, he also intervened as well. Yes, that was also a security matter. So he's always been available in meetings.
What role did he play that yesterday?
Yes, it's just appealing to us and making us understand the reason why we should return to normalcy, why we will go to the negotiating table. In fact, the entire government team, they were sober that yesterday. They tried to appeal. They give us they gave all the reasons why we should go back to the table. So that was what they all did.
So if you look at it, did they tell you the implication, which has national security dimension of the actions of Labour, was that brought to the table?
Yes, of course. You know, when you are in such conversations, government will bring the worst case scenario. Oh, what is happening to the economy? What is happening to, in fact, they told us that people that are supposed to go to Hajj, they couldn't go to Hajj. So there were a lot of things that were put on the table.
And some students are supposed to go to write exams.
But I think, in that case, we communicated to NUT and all the other unions that are in that sector to allow students to write exams.
But again, some were affected.
But we did not stop students from writing exams because they are our children, they are our brothers and our sisters, and they have no role to play in this. So we specifically did that communication, allowing students to write exams. But Sheon, I quickly want to react to what was said in the floor of the Senate, from what was said initially by the former president of the Senate, Ahmed Lawa. You see, when we go to negotiating table, you could see a lot of intellectual work that we put into these conversations. He was talking about the issue of value of the naira. That has been our cry. What we have said, Sheon, was that
If the value of 30,000 naira in 2019 was the same thing that it is today, we would not be pushing for the level of minimum wage. Maybe we would have just done some marginal increases if the value was the same. We have done a lot of proposals. We've had a lot of debate on the table on what government could do to ensure that the value of naira is preserved. We even told them on the table that our fear is this. Let's assume we agree on a national minimum wage of 400,000 naira today, that if the value is not preserved, before we leave the table or the next day, this 400,000 naira may not be able to buy a loaf of bread. So our attention has actually been on the value, not volume. But the reason that we are pushing for volume today is because for you to get value today, the volume must be right. So government must do everything possible to work on the economy. We are ready. We have members cut across everywhere. We are ready to put our intellectual wherewithal into this to ensure that the economy works. Because if the economy works, it works for everybody. We won't have had this logjam today. The reason we are having difficulty in these negotiations is because of the issues that we are having, both in the macroeconomies and the issues we are having in the microeconomies. What we have asked is this, Shehu, that whenever government is bringing about any macroeconomic policies, there should be a way, in economics, where you trace the impact of that macroeconomics policies, you trace it down to microeconomics. You trace it. Right. How will it affect the pocket of a common man?
I'm due for another break in 60 seconds, but let me ask you, those who are asking, how reasonable is the proposition of labor? Because the minimum wage you are talking about is the very level one, step one, the very person that just stepped into the job, the person with the school certificate qualification. How would you imagine in Nigeria of today that such a person should earn the amount that you're proposing? And those who say it's not possible, it's not plausible, and it's not reasonable.
Yes, Seun, I said this here just a few minutes ago, that even the government side, they knew that in some of the informal conversations, that what we have proposed, we are not fixated on that. I said it here again as well, that there are principles you used in establishing what the right value should be, what the value of 18,000 naira in 2011 should be today, what the value of 30,000 naira in 2019 should be today. So we are not fixated on that. But when you are going for negotiations, you go with your best case scenario. So we have gone with our best case scenario. It's not left for government at all to also come with their own. But what we will now use in agreeing on what the national minimum wage should be will now be issues bordering on principle. What was the value of 30,000 naira in 2019? What is the value today? We have a system of calculating it. What was the value of 18,000 naira in 2011? What is the value today? In economics and in finance, they call it net present value. So we can actually establish that.
I need to take a break, but when we come back, I'll get your closing remark on this matter and the way forward for Nigerians. Take a break, everyone. We'll be right back. Thank you so much. Our concluding moments with the president of the TUC, Comrade Festus Osifo. Going forward, it does look like, because 48 hours is what the president has given to Mr. Wale Edun and the Minister of Finance to come up with a template. And hopefully, it's going to be a figure that Labour will agree upon, and that those who are already muting the figure that, look, 100,000 naira might just be a reasonable one. Do you think?
Yes, Shehu, like as I have said, all negotiations, I will not be able to state any amount here, but all negotiations are based on principles. So we should look at those principles that govern negotiations, principles that governs wage increment. No employer will just give you a wage or just dash you to say, take this amount. No, but negotiations should not be based on emotion. So let's remove all the emotions. Let's remove all the sentiment, and let us look at what is the true minimum wage that could ensure that when you apply the consequential order, the consequential adjustment, that the policeman, the sergeant in the police will be able to send his child to school. When you apply that consequential adjustment, the military officers who are fighting insurgents today across Nigeria will be able to take care of their
invariably,
family.
Whatever figure federal government is giving you, they must back it up with claims and the reasons why they're coming up with their figures.
Yes,
is that what you're saying?
It must not be less than the net present value of what both 11,000 naira was in 2011 and what 30,000 naira was in 2019.
What's that figure?
You could start doing the arithmetics.
No, but you are the guys that are
negotiating. I would, when we get to the table, we have all the figures, we know what our minimum benchmark is, and your studio is not the best place for me to release that.
Of course, I mean,
those conversations
you're speaking with both your colleagues in Labour, you're speaking to the generality of Nigerians, the federal government is listening to you, and I'm imagining that figure you're talking about, if the federal government is not able to mark it up, what happens? You go on strike.
No, they should be able to mark it up, because what has brought us to this precipice today, Shehu, is actually some of the economic policies that the government has brought there. Shehu, you know how the price of PMS is biting Nigerian pockets today. You understand the impact that the exchange rate has had. I listened to Bismarck Rewani, renowned economist, in your studio when we were doing all the analysis here, and you could see the challenges that we have faced as a country. The cost of tomatoes, the cost of yam, the cost of food items, they've all skyrocketed. So for us, what we are fixated on is that we must have a wage that would reflect what the values of a previous minimum wage has been. When we are able to do that, I think we can reach a compromise, and we could be able to conclude issues that are bordering around minimum wage. So you're
holding the figures close to your chest. You don't want us to know that what your own calculation is.
No, of course, Shehu. But once we agree on that minimum wage, government must also do everything possible to improve the economy so that money will not erode.
So that brings
when
me to
that
the
money
question.
erodes, it's a problem.
Yeah, it brings me to the question. You had a 15-point agenda in your memorandum of understanding with federal government last year, which also part of it is how they will set up the minimum wage committee and the CNG plan, the wage allowances and all what have you. And those who will say, oh, Labour seems to have been distracted. You are not talking about those unfulfilled items and components of that memorandum of understanding.
We talk about them, after that October 2nd, we have done a lot of communications and releases. There is no minimum wage. We don't just go to minimum wage committee meeting, and in that meeting, we will just be bantering figures. No. All these argument comes in, then government also update us on where they are on them. Then we fought some of the issues. We fought some of the timelines.
Have they provided the solution? Because they listed, including timeline for the refineries to work, the fertilizers. Have they done it all? Because Nigerians entrusted Labour leaders to follow up, and you promised.
Yes, we do.
You and your friend Ajaero, that promised that you will follow up.
We do. We have visited the refineries. For you to know that we do. Sometime in, I think, somewhere in March, a team from Labour, we visited the refinery. That shows that we are following up. On issues of CNG.
The refineries have not come on stream.
They've not come on stream.
The timeline has elapsed.
They've not come on stream. Yes, you are very, very correct.
But the CNG timeline has elapsed.
Yes, but in terms of the CNG, when they told us that they will roll out CNG like in few months, we faulted it. I came to your studio, if you remember clearly, I faulted that process. The reason I faulted it was that you cannot have EV vehicles, electric vehicles, and you don't have the places to charge your batteries. That you cannot have CNG vehicles without the CNG infrastructure cut across the nook and crannies of the country. So from the part of government, they've also come to tell us that they'll be commissioning CNG infrastructures all over, and they've showed us some of the plans that they have to develop or to deploy CNG infrastructures. So for you to know that we follow up clearly to ensure that government, they actually carry out some of the plans that they have, they intend.
I'm going to call you and your colleagues and the leadership of Labour out tonight. On behalf of Nigerians, you are being entrusted to act on behalf of Nigerians to ensure that the 15th item on the MOU is fulfilled. And you promise that you're going to do it.
Correct.
Can Labour come out tomorrow, out of the 15, let us know which of it the federal government has done, which one have they failed on? Because some of the timelines are elapsed. Do you promise to do that?
Do you know that in February, Shehu, you remember clearly in February, Shehu, they were not paying the wage award, for example. It was the ultimatum that was issued in February that made them to not pay 4 months wage award within 2 weeks.
We need to go, Mr. Osifo. Would you do that for Nigerians?
Absolutely.
Let us know out of the 15.
Absolutely.
Come out in public, release a statement. Let us all know out of the 15 with the federal government that committed to. That's the reason why the tension down.
Correct.
Can they come out and tell us how many have been performed? Are you promising to do that for Nigerians?
We have been doing it, Shehu.
I'm asking a specific. Would you do that? 15
Shehu.
How many of it have been done?
I've come to this your studio that you asked me what is the percentage score that we could give we should give to them in terms of that implementation. I told you that at best it will be 50% at best. So that shows that there are some things that they have not done. But if there are updates after that particular time, they should also let us know. For the people to hold accountable on what they promised is actually government, not the reverse.
No, I'm
we will
saying
continuously,
that because you are standing in the gap.
Yes,
and I'm saying out of the 15 items, can you tell Nigerians
it's about
between
50%.
now and Friday, let us take the ones that have done. The ones that
we are always
let
ready
us
to
know.
do that.
Thank you so
we are
much.
always ready
We'll
to
be
do
glad.
that.
And
We are
if you
always
have
ready.
it, you can follow
We are
us on
always ready
Channel
to do that.
Television.
No problem at all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
First also for President of the TUC.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate it. That's our show for tonight, everyone. And thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow at 8 p.m. God bless you.